Russian stereotypes interest me because I work with a lot of people in the translation industry and people who use translation. And sometimes I'll say things to them, well, why haven't you considered Russia? And they'll say things like, the market is too big, it is too mature, I can't speak Russian, vodka, any other sort of excuse you can imagine. So I remember distinctly somebody saying, I'm going to start. Any Latvians in the audience? Yeah, please. They don't mind, it's okay, you can say hello. and they were saying they were selling to Latvia. I said, well, next door there's this really big country. Have you thought of selling to them? And they said, no, they're not part of Europe. So it gets me thinking about how that affects the translation industry in Russia. And that's, I guess, what this presentation is about. And how I hope I can give some insight as a Westerner, but give some insight as somebody involved in translation and helping people export as to how that might help your industry get better business, more profit, etc. So, Atia, Yarosifin, and I have my website. Please visit it, because there's only one page, but it's all по-русски. So, 20 years of experience, what in, who knows. Я вегетарианец, я не пью алкоголю, и я, тем не менее, I'm still coming back, even though I don't eat meat or drink alcohol. Спасибо. Спасибо. I get this a lot. Doug, blah, 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 blah. Это Россия. Everywhere is different, that's why it's somewhere else. I admit Russia is different. I admit you have different problems, but every country has problems. Yours are different, other people's are the same, whatever. It's not going to help you much, if that's what you think. So I tend to hold my own stereotypes about Russians from my visits here, which hopefully are many and numerous, which is the same thing. I see people who know there's a system and they play it to their own advantage. I see people who know there's a system and they suffer it. That's a particularly Russian thing to do. And then there are those that emigrate. I think I'm right in saying the population is falling from like 150 million to 142 million. That's kind of a shame. It is a human doing this, isn't it? So every time I move, he has to move. Oh, such fun. I'm not really sure these are mutually exclusive stereotypes. But you know, you speak to people, oh, Russians, they're all communists and oligarchs. That's good, isn't it? They own Chelsea and they live in an apartment with 16 people. Alcoholics and academics. You ask people about Russia, you know, the great chess players, fabulous artists, very intellectual, but they're all drunk all the time. I'm sorry, I don't really mean that, but you know. Here, this is a really interesting one, isn't it? All the Western men in the audience know about this. And I've met these ladies that built the metro. I was in the metro once, a long time ago, and I was using my jeton, and somebody decided not to use the jeton, so he jumped. I'll do that again for you. Jumped. I kid you not. A babushka came up behind him, grabbed him by the coat. She'd built the metro, she wanted paying. So, if Russia could build cars like it builds women, Germany would be bankrupt, and they'd be asking Greece for money. Just think about that, Christian, wherever you are, all these German exporters. And then you have this thing about it's not nice talking about negative stereotypes, but there is a certain machismo, if you like, with Russian men when they're on holiday, etc. And Russian politics, you know, we'll bury you, this sort of thing. You've got probably the hardest prime minister or president in the world, you know. Our prime minister and presidents, they ride bicycles. Yours rides a Harley. He can kill people, you know. Ours play cards and things. We're not the same. Space technology. That's great, isn't it? You won the space race. The Americans have to borrow your spaceships. That's brilliant. But yet, when I look around, I see buildings with wires hanging everywhere because there aren't underneath and, like cabling underneath. So I see differences there. But I think when you have a huge country, you have huge contrast. And by the way, I was told once when you're presenting, you're supposed to walk backwards and forwards because it emphasizes things. You're not supposed to walk this way and that way. Who cares about the rules? This is Russia. And highly educated people and simple people. As in, I don't mean simple people as in not nice, I just mean genuinely nice people, but then the highly educated ones as well. How are we doing for time? Just keep warning me, because they could get bored very easy. Look, catch scooch now. Oh. Positive stereotypes. Every time I come, I try and go to the ballet and the theatre and the opera, and it's wonderful. But it's not, I don't remember ever seeing a business book in an airport that said, how I made my billions by buying state monopolies at $10. I never saw this. So business in Russia isn't seen or perceived as something that's positive from the West in a sense. Often people think that what happens is you have huge natural resources. And I hear people say, well, as soon as the oil price goes down, then Putin has trouble. I don't know. We'll see. I think there's more to it than that. I often say to people, what do you think about Russia? And if you ask them, it's a pretty big country. But there's no way of understanding that. So people who know Russia might say, there's a place called Moscow. Then we have a place called St. Pete's where you go and see the Hermitage and all those things. Because in Moscow what you go for is you go to see a car park essentially. When I came about 20 years ago, there were Zills and Ladas. Now there's Mercedes and Ladas. And then everywhere else is Siberia. Even I used to think that. And I've been to Siberia, and it's very nice. Spasibo. We had a banyan in Siberia. That's Russian for naked men hitting each other with hats on. That was an experience. When people are trading, they're looking for things like the World Trade Organization, which I know Russia has now. They're looking at whether they're part of Europe, NAFTA, these sort of things. Corruption. Corruption exists, I think, virtually everywhere. The British might say we're less corrupt, but we still put a fake rock in Moscow. Did anybody hear about that? A fake rock? Oh, jeez. I saw a program once about spying. And they were talking to ex-Soviet spies, and I told to a lot of people this, and it was the BBC that were interviewing this gentleman, and he talked about honeypots, using the krasiva девушка, and he said, well, how did that work? He said, well, we'd get these beautiful ladies, and they'd speak to the American diplomats, and then they'd have a relationship, and then we'd learn all these secrets. And he said, oh, what did you do with the British people? Did you do the same thing? He said, with British diplomats? No, we used boys. That's the British education system for you. So people think that there's corruption, but there's corruption everywhere. I admit there seems to be a bit more here. I've been bribed, or I have paid policemen cash rather than go to prison, or whatever they were going to do to me. I just paid them the money. That's not something I experience in many places. Cyrillic, people, I remember I was in a meeting with somebody and we looked at a website, and I can read some Cyrillic. And it was like I could read Japanese. The guy was amazed. And you think, come on, it's Greek, a little bit of Latin, it's not too different. So people see it and they get a blindness, these Latin users. Mature market. I was really amazed. I was talking to a company recently, and they were in mining, and they're working in Kazakhstan. They said, why aren't you going to Russia? He said, because Russia is a mature market, so we can't add value. We believe we can add value in Kazakhstan. That's an interesting thing to me. So we have things like Moscow being expensive. Jeez, that place is expensive. The hotels? I thought I was buying it. I had to share a room with Joseph. Where's Joseph? Yeah. Geography and size. We talked about the Russian smile. And Russian customer service. Боже мой. It's not that bad. You just have to learn to sort of ask them twice. Well, может быть, 3 раза, да? They don't know who you are, we'll do that later. Small markets try harder. Lots of small markets around Russia don't have this enormous economy, so they use Russian as a volume language, even though it's not their language. I'm thinking of the Baltics, etc. These are problems I have directly experienced, apart from the policeman asking me for money. We actually escaped one of them on the bridge just before Krasnaya Ploshet. I could run faster than he could. He'd got this big hat. I think it was slowing him down. Visas? Well, I'm hopefully getting an annual visa soon, so I'm looking forward to getting that. Paperwork? Oh, you love paperwork here, don't you? Oh, you love paper. You give me paper, you stamp it, you sign it, then you rip it, and then you give it back to me. What am I supposed to do with this? Keep it. Because you can't go out without it. I was in a hotel last year in St. Pete's. I couldn't find my passport. What, my passport? Я не знаю. Shit. I thought, this is really bad. I'm not going to get out of Russia if I haven't got a passport. Now, what do you do if you haven't got your passport? They're going to export you, or whatever they call that, send you out of the country? Well, that's what I want to do. I went to reception, and they said, I can't find my passport. And I was really, really panicking. I didn't care. After about 20 minutes, they'd got my passport, and they said, you should have reminded us that we'd got your passport. Am I paying? No, actually the exhibitors are probably paying, but there you go. Oh, jeez! They've stolen more stuff than I bought. I send chocolates to Russia, they never get them. There's this guy sitting at the customs, and he's, oh, more chocolates from Doug. Oh yeah, that's dark chocolate. That's light chocolate, open that one. Send a Dostoevsky book, it always gets there. Really, that is a problem. And if you send things to a business address in Russia, it gets there. If you send it to a personal address in Russia, who knows? Extremely late payment. I would never clearly do business for cash and avoid taxes, because we are being recorded, I believe. But if you do it the official way, something about somebody sends you an order, you send them a quote, you fill in a piece of paper, you tell somebody you're using international finance and you're doing things with lots of currencies, then you send it back and they have to fill in the form and say they've had the money back in the goods. I just want the money, yeah. Kapusta, сейчас. I don't want any more paper. It's a paperless office I run. Hotels. Oh. I spent 4 days in a hotel last year in Russia, and the fourth day I started to feel I was getting angry. And I realized this because I was starving, because I'm vegetarian. And you say, I'm vegetarian, and look at you and go, I thought you were English. You want your ham sliced thinly? We've got chicken. Chicken's not vegetarian. Yeah, it is. No, ask the chicken. It's not vegetarian. So, there is an answer to this. The solution. And you'll like this. Готов? This is definitely true of Russia, more so than other countries. When I travel with friends, which I do, when I stay with friends, it's really, really great. And I think that's probably why your hotels don't work that well. Oh, geez, I'm in a hotel. It's not being recorded, is it? None of this will go anywhere. So, but that's an interesting point, that you have to have friends, you have to deal with friends. But Anglo-American business is very transactional based. We don't have to have friends to deal with them. But I think in Russia, if I want to deal with people, it's better to be friends. When I travel with friends, when I stay at the houses, it's just a much nicer experience. So, spasiba to all those that let me stay there and looked after me. All I'm saying is think of these stereotypes, whether negative or positive, and think of an answer. So on your websites, for example, maybe talk about you can help them overcome, I wouldn't say problems, but you can help them go through the maze of Russian bureaucracy, all these sort of things. You can help them understand languages, etc. You can, like if you're not in Moscow, could you explain to them where Novosibirsk is, or just speak to them about it. So communicate a bit more. Now I'm going to go on to something else. We are a communication industry. On the whole, these are quite nice idioms to use. All things considered, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, I can't say that. Most Russian translation provider web presences, and not just the website, they could do with a bit of a refresh. Really, really they could. I took the top 25 Russian companies by value and by ratings, from Kostya's ratings, and then did searches on them over a period of about 7 months. From what they call the Google English side of things. So you put an alert out, and the only companies that really come up are Abbey, maybe Yammer sometimes, maybe InText, but you know, there were 25 companies, and so literally I was getting maybe 1 or 2 hits every 2 or 3 weeks. So you're not on the English-speaking internet. They mainly exist in the RootNet. How many translation service providers here have any presence that's hosted outside of Russia on a website? It just makes it easier for the engines to find. If you're not going to do that, then use a thing called geotargeting and at least tell them that those websites are there. If you don't understand that, then how do you expect to sell website translation to your clients? You can speak to me afterwards. There isn't much search engine, social media presence, sorry. Some providers get it right. Katia does it really, really, really well. You see her name perfectly, you see her pictures, and she owns, I think, 8 out of the first 10 on the internet. So some people get it right, some people less right. It's not just about stereotypes. We know the prices are low. We know the future is. Somebody said to me once, in communist times, only the future was known because the past could always change. But Russia's future could change in all sorts of ways. And people want to grow their business and make more profit. So what they can do, I'm sure a lot of you look at these prices and go, what? People sell Russian for 18 cents? I used to sell it for sort of 21, 22 cents when I was a multilingual vendor. And you're not selling for that for a good reason. There's a chain, and the chain is slightly longer in Russia than other countries. You have this thing where there's a lot of people in Moscow and St. Pete's who then farm it out to local vendors. Every time you have a chain, you have people who are taking profit in that chain. If you want to make more profit, you can shorten the chain, but that costs money. So if you don't like your place in the chain, if you want to sell direct, for example, you can get more money for your word, but then you have the cost of selling. And technology will still bring benefits. There's a lot of technology people here, and a lot of people think, well, I can get people relatively cheaply in Russia. It won't continue that way. So spend some time with the technology vendors. They usually have good prices at the shows and things, but it is worth investing in technology. This is the market. I used to think maybe you could go east, because a lot of people I know deal with the east. And the problem is when you look at the figures here from Common Sense Advisory, we're actually, it's 50-50 Europe and the US. So there's an awful lot of market in the West, so to speak. Who's doing it globally? Because I would say to you, go to oil and gas, because that's a big market. I think it's 40% of the industrial index here. But when you look at what people are buying, again from Common Sense Advisory, you can see these are the industries people are buying translation in. People work with multilingual vendors. That's what we're saying here. So if you want to go direct, you have to be multilingual. Some work with freelancers, not many. And they don't like to change their vendors very often. So you have to have a reason for them to change. Final thoughts. That's pretty good, isn't it? That's not bad. Russian international trade will grow, without a doubt, which is good for your market. You should help businesses see beyond the stereotypes on your websites, in your literature, etc. And also by engaging as an international organisation with other organisations. In the UK, we had lots of problems with the Ministry of Justice when they gave a particular contract, and the interpretation rates fell through the floor, literally something like $5 an hour, or ridiculous levels. And then the industry started writing to the Prime Minister, writing to the government. Well, do it before rather than afterwards, so engage with organisations. And remember, your company can engage as well with your website, etc. So finally, this bit of Russian at the bottom. It's true. So, спасибо большое.